Oh, come on! Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of my Capcom Arcade Stadium collection. My name is Ed and I'm your host. If you just found this video by chance, make sure to check out part 1 and subscribe so you'll be reminded of part 3 when that releases in the next few days. So today's bundle is the Arcade Revolution bundle. It covers games from 1989 to 1992. The picks in this collection are really solid, and anybody who went to arcades during this period of their life will remember most of these fondly, and also had an amazing childhood that they're wishing they could go back to instead of working that thankless corporate job they currently have, or if you're like me, you're listening to your neighbor's leaf blower for what feels like 3 hours first thing in the morning. Sorry. Anyway, let's get on to the games. First up is 1943, the Battle of Midway, which I'm adding to this review because despite being released in 1988, it was not actually in the last video's bundle and was in fact a free download with the base game, so I'm doing this one for extra credit. So this one is obviously a sequel to 1942 and was a notable step up in the series. Some of the more standard features of shooters is in this one, like having normal enemies to shoot at in addition to the special red enemies that will drop a power-up when you take out the whole wave of them. You can shoot the power-up to change what it'll give you as well. The nifty roll move has made its way back and it's just as useful as ever. There's more enemy variety this time as well, along with boss fights where you're on a timer to take them out or else you have to try it again. Instead of getting 3 lives, you get 1 life bar, so when you lose all your health, it's game over and you'll have to insert more coins to pick up where you left off. This one's got a lot more staying power than the last one and you'll have fun with it. Next is Strider, released in 1989 and one of my favorite games on this collection and of all time. This is great, the remake on last-gen consoles is great, heck, I even main Strider on Marvel vs. Capcom because I love racking up them sweet combos while enjoying that awesome sound the sword makes. You play as Strider Hiryu, a high-tech ninja who infiltrates the capital of a bad guy named the Grand Master. It's in the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic and it's in the year 2048. You'll kill enemy soldiers, giant robot apes, flying machines, all sorts of other things. Your main weapon is this cool sword that you can power up to reach ridiculous lengths, and you also get various robot animal helpers to come along for the ride. The game is this awesome mix of Soviet dystopia with high-tech everything, and also has a high-tech ninja, and you use classic ninja weapons and animals with a robotic spin on them, and all of it fits perfectly together. Hiryu himself is agile and can climb walls, and there's parts where you'll run down hills at a fast speed to vault over pits, or you'll grab onto hovering platforms to take out enemies in the sky. The whole thing is great, and I could do an entire video on how much I love this series. Hopefully it'll stay undiscovered by Hollywood, and they won't ruin it with a movie or TV show like they do with everything else. Moving right along, we got Dynasty Wars, also from 1989. I had to look this up because I never ever saw this growing up. This is kind of sort of a brawler, but it's on horses. It's up for interpretation. Basically, the story is loosely based on Romance of the Three Kingdoms and follows Liu Bei and a few other generals as they fight the Huang Qing rebels and defeat the tyrant Dong Zhuo. I never read any of this stuff, so it's all meaningless to me. You've got 3 attack buttons. 1 attacks left, 1 attacks right, and then 1 button is for tactics. Tactics you can think of as a magic button or a special button in a way, because the attacks it'll do change from time to time, and sometimes it'll be calling in guys to shoot fire arrows, or another time it'll be dropping boulders and stuff like that on enemies. You can also charge the attack button itself to take out enemies with a stronger hit. It's a surprisingly bloody game for the time, and the art style in the cutscenes looks great. Apparently this is the first Capcom arcade game to let you choose which character you start with, and they've all got different strengths and weaknesses. I looked online for a connection between this and the Dynasty Warriors games, since those are a spin-off of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but nothing specific other than their loose connection with that universe. If anybody wants to give any info on that in the comments, go for it, because I'm kind of curious about it. Anyways, the game looks and plays really well, and the twist with it being on horses and using tactics for that extra punch when fighting was original. It did get a sequel called Warriors of Fate, which is going to be reviewed in part 3 of this collection. Final Fight also came out in 1989, and it is a classic that you're probably familiar with. The Mad Gear Gang, who basically run Metro City, has kidnapped Jessica, and you play as one of 3 guys to get her back. Her dad, Mayor Mike Hagar, who is probably the only mayor to ever actually physically fight crime. Jessica's boyfriend and Street Fighter 4 and 5 scrub-friendly character Cody, who took fashion advice from Streets of Rage character Axel, and Cody's friend Guy, a ninja in training who apparently had nothing better to do and just wanted to go beat the shit out of people. We've all been there. You go through each section of Metro City, beating everybody that you come across into a coma, fight classic bosses like Damned and Sodom at the end of each level, and make your way toward the end with the final showdown. The countdown screen was genius in that your character would actually die if you didn't put another quarter in to save them, so you always wanted one more game to not see your hero get blown up. There's lots of enemy variety here, like the lanky camo guy with the knives, everybody's favorite, well, depending on the version you play, she was or was not a girl, Poison, and many more. A lot of these characters made their way into Street Fighter over the years, so it all feels like it's part of this shared universe. Anyway, the game is a classic, and you of course have to play through this at least once. 1941 Counterattack was released in 1990 and plays and looks great. I actually liked this one enough that I played through the whole game my first time because I couldn't put it down. There's 5 or 6 levels total that span your typical oceans and outdoor areas, nuclear facilities, and places like that. There's large bosses to take out at the end, and you've got different power-ups like machine gun, some sort of bomb gun thing, and oddly enough a shotgun that, as you can guess, spreads a lot but doesn't really have much of a reach. Also, the idea of putting a shotgun on an airplane is stupid and hilarious. There's no functionality to that. You might as well put a sword on your plane. Anyways, the game moves at a fast pace, and there's tons of enemies on the ground and in the air to blow up, and it's just a fun time. Senjo no Okami 2, known to us Yanks as Mercs, came out in 1990. It's a sequel to Commando and features not just one soldier, but 3 this time around, and you guessed it, it's a 3-player game. There's obviously a big graphical update since a lot changes in 5 years, but that's not all. A lot of the environment is destructible now, so you can shoot down trees, huts, boxes, and a lot of these things reveal power-ups and new weapons to collect and continue on with your path of destruction. You start with a default gun that can be upgraded into an assault rifle, or shotgun, grenade launcher, or flamethrower, each with different strengths. Another new addition is the Mega Crush that you can use to clear the screen of enemies or to take a big bite off the boss's health. You'll fight things like tanks, helicopters, or stationary guns that you can take control of to mow everything down. It's everything you like about 80s action movies put into this game. You're even rescuing a former president from captivity. You're still moving in the direction you shoot, which is still annoying but hardly game-breaking. If you liked Commando though, you're going to have fun with this. 1990's Mega Twins is a cartoony scrolling platformer also known as Cheeky Cheeky Boys in Japan. Personally, I like that name better. It's 1 to 2 player co-op, and you take control of twins who are fighting monsters that have destroyed their homeland and want to find the Dragon Blue Eyes that'll restore everything to how it was before. What's notable about this one is that after you choose your name, you actually get to pick which stage order you go in when you start the game. Each world is a different theme, like Sky World, Forest, and so on. You use your sword to attack enemies, and you also get to use different types of magic. There's a lot of enemies, but the game never really felt impossible, and the boss variety is fun as well. It's a fun and lighthearted game that I had fun playing. Carrier Airwing came out in 1990 and is basically the arcade version and spiritual successor to side-scrolling shooter UN Squadron on the Super Nintendo, which is one of my favorite games on that console. Like UN Squadron, you could choose one of 3 different planes and purchase upgrades in between stages, but this time you can't choose your stage order depending on enemy placement on the map. You have a fuel bar that functions as your health bar as well, and any damage you take will reduce that in addition to the fuel bar slowly depleting on its own, so you're going to not just shoot down enemies for more cash and power-ups, but also to get fuel just to stay in the air. The bosses are similar and feature things like large jets, aircraft carriers, and they have visible location-based damage the more you shoot them. Picking apart different spots to destroy and cripple the boss is really satisfying, and so are taking out waves of fighter jets and tanks with a fully powered-up gun. The graphics are an upgrade as well, with more detailed backgrounds and added depth. If you enjoyed UN Squadron, or just like shooters, then this is a must-play. Also, if you don't like shooters, I don't really know why you bought any of these bundles, because they're like half the games on here, and you'd be better off getting any number of Street Fighter collections or the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. Street Fighter 2 is what put fighting games on the map, and if you bought this collection, you know what it is. Nothing new with this except that it's an arcade-faithful version of the game. The original was released in 1991 and only had 8 characters to choose from: Ryu, Ken, Guile, Zangief, Dalsim, E. Honda, Blanca, and Chun-Li. I remember seeing this game for the first time at a Fry's grocery store and being blown away by the graphics. Also, being 50 cents to play back then made it a big deal. So quick story about that, I didn't know what I was doing at all and picked Blanca, looked at the 6 buttons with weird names like Forward or Fierce, didn't quite get the concept of hitting up to jump on the joystick and not pushing a jump button, and got my face pounded in by Ryu like 2 rounds in a row. Anyways, Back then, you'd go through each of the fighters, then you'd fight Balrog, Vega, and Sagat, then fight M. Bison himself. Actually standing next to someone you're playing against was a totally different experience than it is now, and back in the day, trash talking would get your ass kicked in by either one or multiple people. On the other hand, beating some arrogant chode with a slow character like Dalsim or Zangief was really satisfying, and then you get to see them act like they had to leave and go do the walk of shame out of the arcade. If there's any game on this bundle that there wasn't enough of in general, it's Captain Commando, released in 1991. It's another beat-em-up for up to 3 players, featuring a guy who was supposed to be the spokesman for Capcom during the late 80s, but they never seemed to really do anything with him other than put him on some box art to promote other titles. If you've played Marvel vs. Capcom 1 or 2, you'll recognize the Captain as a playable character, who also has his friends pop in for special attacks. He made appearances in some other games like Project X Zone, SNK vs. Capcom Card Fighters Clash on the Neo Geo Pocket, and a few others. It really is too bad he didn't get more recognition because the whole ragtag crew he rolls with is just awesome. You've got the Captain himself, followed by Ginzu the Ninja, who walks around and slashes guys with his sword, Mac the Knife, and I'm totally serious, that's his name. He's a mummy who attacks with knives, and Babyhead, an infant inside a robot mech suit. Like, this is Doom Patrol quality weirdness. They each have different attacks and specials they do that add to the personality this game has, and there's a few other improvements the game made that I was happy to see, like the ability to run and do running attacks as a result, and pilot different types of mechs to fight enemies. Unlike Final Fight, you can also carry weapons from one stage to the next. The boss fights are your standard large enemies to beat on, and a few of them do feel a little generic, but it's still a good time and one of my favorites in this bundle. And to round off the bundle, we've got Varth, Operation Thunderstorm, released in 1992. It's a top-down shooter where you're playing as the pilot of one of only 2 planes made that can take down a supercomputer that's been possessed by some entity known as Duo that wasted like 80% of the planet. It's weird, but it's an excuse to blow things up, so it works. You start the game by deciding which type of helpers named pods you'll use. Basically, it's the difference between having these things defend you straight ahead at all times, or if you want them to react on their own to bullets. After that, you're doing the standard of blasting waves of enemies, getting power-ups, and using screen-clearing mega crash blasts when the action gets a little too crazy for you. There's different weapons you can pick up, like lasers and a spread shot, and your pods can get weapons as well. There's a ton of stuff to blow up in the air and on the ground, and the bosses are things like a spider, satellite, an iron golem, and more. The game has 30 stages in it, so settle in and have fun. And with that last game wrapped up, that was the Arcade Revolution bundle, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. The first 2 bundles have been really solid, and the hits continue in the Arcade Evolution bundle with games like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Cyberbots, and Gigawing. Be sure to subscribe so you'll know when the next one drops, and I will see you next time. Congratulations! You're one of an elite few to make it to the end of the video. Reward yourself by hitting the round subscribe button in the middle, and then check out the other goodies I've got and the links next to it.